Whispered tales and flickering candlelight beckon you to a very Tudor holiday, where the mists of Europe unveil forgotten revels. Beneath star-strewn skies and within ancient halls, we wander through the enchanted tapestry of Tudor holidays. From the ethereal glow of Christmas, where spirits dance in royal courts, to the shrouded rites of All Hallows Eve, steeped in mystery, we weave spells of old-world wonder. Join us as we unravel the dreams, secrets, and star-crossed joys of a time when every celebration held magic in its heart. Come closer. No, closer than that. This isn't a story for far-off listeners. It's for those of us who still feel the air shift when the season turns, who know that something ends when September does. It's the 29th of September. The year is 1487, and England is holding their breath. This day, Michaelmas, the Feast of Angels, yes, but also endings, of wages paid, of bread broken, of women standing in doorways, wondering if the frost will come too soon. The fields have been cleared, mostly. Blackberries hung heavy, but only for a little longer. Pick them now or risk the devil's spit come morning. You do not pick blackberries after September 29th. You don't mess with the devil's spit. I don't. The sun feels thinner, like it's remembering how to disappear, and somewhere, maybe in a manor, maybe behind a market stall, maybe in a one-room cottage with a leaking roof, a woman is counting her luck and hoping that it lasts just one more season. And though the records will say this day belongs to kings, to contracts, to St. Michael's flaming sword, don't be fooled. This story, it's stitched together by women. Imagine a hall tall enough to catch your dreams in the rafters. The banners of two dynasties hung there, one red, one white. Stitched together, not just in thread, but in blood. Tapestries cover the stone like secrets handed down from mother to daughter, embroidered with saints bearing swords, dragons tangled in golden vines, and angels who look more tired than triumphant. The air smells like rosemary tucked into the hearth, roasted goose glazed to mirror finish, and the kind of spice, maybe nutmeg, maybe grief, that lingers longer than it should. She enters like a song that's been rewritten too many times. Elizabeth of York, daughter of a dead king, sister to the lost princess, bride to the man who made war into a wedding vow, and mother to the heir, Prince Arthur. She walks softly, but the hush she brings is cathedral deep. She wears peace, like a borrowed diadem, earned perhaps, but never fully hers. Her smile is warm, practiced, and just a touch weary. Every step is diplomacy. Across the room, Margaret Beaufort watches, with the stillness of someone who survived every version of ambition. She has prayed her son onto the throne. She has buried husbands, rewritten futures, and signed letters as Margaret R. without ever needing a crown. For Margaret, Michaelmas isn't just a feast. It is inventory of harvests, of loyalties, of sins confessed and forgiven only on parchment. They are two queens, but not of the same game. Elizabeth plays with grace and garlands. Margaret plays with ledgers and laws. But tonight, they both play. Michaelmas, the feast of St. Michael and all angels, falls just as the year begins to bow its head. For women of their rank, it's part holy day, part political theater. It's not merely about roast goose and accounts coming due. It's about surviving long enough to feast at all. Elizabeth's preparations are devotional in more way than one. The dishes laid out are not simply meals, but messages. The golden goose sparks of abundance and loyalty. An old superstition says that eating goose at Michaelmas ensures plenty for the coming year. The bread is braided with honey and hope, shaped by hands that have learned to hold blessings gently, lest they vanish. The custards are delicate, almost too fragile for the spoons that dare disturb them. Like treaties written in sugar, every course is a prayer she dares not speak aloud, a mother's quiet vow for her son's health, a wife's silent wish that this piece, however brittle, might hold, a queen's plea not to become history's footnote. Margaret oversees the affair, with the eye of someone who once counted every grain in her son's purse, and every whisper in his court. Her devotion to Michaelmas runs deeper still. St. Michael is the warrior archangel, the one who casts down the devil, the one who fights not just for heaven but for justice. To her, this feast is a reckoning. She kneels in her private chapel at dawn, lips pressed to the cold of the floor, and prays with the fervor of a woman who has bartered everything to protect a crown worn by someone else. And yet this night is not only ritual, it is survival dressed in velvet. For noble women, Michaelmas marks more than the harvest. It marks the end of campaign season and the beginning of court season. It's when alliances harden or wither. It's when households pay their rents and armies disband or gather quietly again. It's when women like Elizabeth and Margaret must read faces with more skill than they ever read scripture. They greet their guests like queens in a chess match, a smile for a marcher lord who still eyes the throne with Yorkist longing, a warm word for a young lady with Beaufort blood who might be married off next spring. The hall is full, but each woman calculates the gaps. Who did not come, who sent apologies by letter, or silence. And later, when the fire burns low and the laughter turns to embers, Elizabeth slips into the chapel alone. No fanfare, no guards, just candlelight and the weight of too many crowns. She kneels, not for show. She kneels because the only place her body does not betray her is in prayer. Her knees ache, but not as much as her silence. Her hands smell of lavender and wax, and she whispers not for vengeance, not even for victory, just time. Time to raise her children, time to hold her husband's uneasy affection, time to outlast the ghosts at her table. Margaret, too, prays, in her own chamber, surrounded by books and relics. She thanks St. Michael for another year. Her son remains on the throne. She did not ask for comfort, only that her legacy endure, that her pen continue to write the kingdom into permanence. And that, perhaps, is Michaelmas for women like them. It's not merely a feast. It's an accounting of faith, of power, of everything a woman must carry in silence, and everything she dares to hope might still bloom, even as the days grow short. The town wakes up before the sun dares rise. Chickens are already grumbling in their coops. Smoke curls lazily from a dozen chimneys, coaxed from the damp firewood and old ash. But the women here, they've been up even longer. Long before the bells toll, the kitchens are already breathing. The hearths are already groaning. There's bread to bake, ink to dry, accounts to tally. Michaelmas has come again, steady as a tolling bell, and with the weight of the year's reckoning. For Agnes, the silk woman, this day is part celebration, part survival. She keeps her threads in a cedarwood box, older than her marriage, arranged by shade and silence. She's been working double hours for a month, dyeing the last round of ribbons in faded autumn gold, trimming veils for a merchant's wife, and fashioning bodices from the remnants, too precious to waste. Dye it wrong, and a whole reputation can unravel. Agnes knows that colors matter. Blue for respectability, green for fertility, gold for ambition. She wraps her threads tighter than her secrets, and there are plenty she's not in the habit of sharing. Her daughter Joan, 17 and already sharper than most guildsmen, doesn't waste time on flattery. She can barter a bolt of fabric into a week's worth of gossip. Her curtsy is calculated, her tongue polite but pointed. She learned early that all men like to think they're not being managed, and she obliges them just enough to make the coin jingle. Maud, on the other hand, wears her grief like a second skin. Her morning dress is neat, black as ash, carefully mended at the hem, where memory frays most easily. Her husband died that past winter, and though she's held on to his cobbler's shop, the business isn't the same without his jokes echoing through the rafters. She counts every coin like it's a memory she can't afford to misplace. Today she's brought a small goose to the communal oven, smaller than last year's, and while she doesn't say it, Agnes sees her purse is also lighter, because that's the thing about feast days. They mark absences louder than anything else. Who's no longer at your table? Who didn't pay rent? Whose name was dropped from the guild roll with no ceremony? Outside, the market square smells of cider and sawdust, blood sausage and ripened pears. The cobblestones are slick with spilled ale and fruit pulp. Children chase each other in shoes too big or too tight. Daughters are paraded like half-polished gems, modest dresses freshened up with new trim, their hair curled with rags overnight, hands scrubbed until they shine. You never know who you might be looking at for a match after all. Michaelmas for women like Agnes and Maud isn't about angels and miracles. It's about settling accounts. Rents come due, harvest wages are tallied, apprenticeships begin or end. The old year folds in on itself, like a shutter closing. There's a prayer in the air, but it's woven with practicalities. May my child stay healthy. May the grain not rot. May I sell enough to get through the winter. In the guild hall at night, the candles are stubby but determined. The tables are lined with trenchers and tankards, the ale flows, and so does the gossip. Faster than the cider, and with more kick. Agnes catches wind of a new weaver in town. She'll have to see if the woman's any good. Maud fears that the magistrate is raising rents. Joan rolls her eyes at the tailor's son trying too hard to impress her with a joke he borrowed from a minstrel. A girl from the baker's lane has been hired up at the manor house to work in the kitchens. Her mother's worried. A merchant's boy was caught lifting a skein of wool. Not much, but enough to raise eyebrows. And one old widow, a little tipsy off mulled wine, swears she saw an angel at the edge of the woods. No one believes her, but everyone leans in anyway, because it's the kind of story that tastes better than pudding. These women don't spin fairy tales. They spin cloth. They spin coin. They spin stories. They spin the world between their fingers and in the silence between their prayers. And when the candles burn low and the fire sighs into embers, and Agnes folds her hands over her apron, thread-stained and clean at the same time, she thanks St. Michael not just for protection, but for endurance. He may have slain a dragon, but she faces the market, the debts, the mourning, and the men who never say thank you. She thinks that should count too. Maud walks home with her cloak wrapped tight, the stars sharp above her. She doesn't cry. She's done enough of that for 1 year, but she does whisper a thank you to the cold wind for waking her up, for letting her keep going, for not forgetting her name. Because Michaelmas for women like Agnes and Maud is not just about saints or slaughtered geese. It's about making it to the end of the year with your hands still strong, your house still warm, and your name still yours. It's about starting again, even when you're not sure what you're starting. It's about surviving, quietly, fiercely, beautifully. Here, the light is softer, not because it's less, but because it's earned. The autumn sun filters through the smoke-gray clouds, bathing the stone cottage in gold, like a benediction. The kind that doesn't promise miracles, only the small dignity of another day. Ellen's hands are cracked and red from pulling roots and tugging stubborn weeds from the ground. Her nails are rimmed with earth that won't scrub clean, no matter how long she scrapes them with ash. Her back aches from bending over cabbages that stubbornly refuse to fatten. Her boots leak, and the right one has a hole patched with twine and hope. The cottage leans a little more than last year, but it still stands, and so does she. Michaelmas has come, not with trumpets, but with fog and wood smoke and the low, heavy hum of survival. For Ellen, this day is not about feasts, or fairs, or ribbon tied to goosenecks. It's a reckoning. It's a ritual. It's a quiet dare to the coming cold. I am still here. She rose before dawn, when the air was so still even the birds had nothing to say. She stirred the coals and lit the fire, whispering thanks to the flame like it was a friend. She swept the dirt floor, washed the faces of squirming children, and tied back her hair with the same rag she's used for 3 years now. It smells faintly of marigold. She makes bannocks, not with cream or honey like the manor cook might, but with barley she ground herself, salt she traded for last summer, and just enough fat from the gooseneck to make the dough hold. They're hard-edged little things, but they're hers, and they'll keep the family going another day. She doesn't have saffron, that's for kitchens with servants, and scrolls of spice lists, but she has salt, and that's a kind of wealth. She has onions strung above her hearth like blessings. She has roots, stored beneath the floorboards, cradled in straw and prayers. She has the names of plants that will heal, passed down from her mother who learned the hard way. Tonight, she saved the best piece of goose for her eldest, even though she's the one who plucked the feathers, tended the fire, turned the spit. She does this without comment. That's how you love when you're poor, in silence, in small sacrifices. She tells her children the old stories, even though her voice is tired from bargaining in the market and arguing with the neighbor who lets his pigs wander. She tells them of the angel Michael, burning sword in hand, who cast the devil from heaven like a lightning strike. She tells them how blackberries turn bitter after this day, soured by the devil's spit as he fell to earth. She tells them about girls who danced with stars, barefoot in the frost, their feet glowing. Her daughters laugh, not because they think it's true, but because they want it to be. Maybe she does too. When she walks to Mass, she walks with humility stitched into every step. She's the last to sit, the first to bow. Her shawl is thin, but carefully mended. The wool coarse, but clean. She doesn't know her prayers in Latin, not properly, but she says them anyway, her voice quieter than the creaking pew. Her prayer isn't poetic, but it's real. Let the winter be kind, let the roof hold, let the rats stay gone, let my youngest grow tall enough to reach the latch. And when the wind howls at night, as it soon will, Ellen doesn't hide. She pulls her children closer, not to shield them, but to teach them what strength sounds like when it has no title, what love feels like when it shows up every day without jewels or decorations, what it means to hold the line, quietly, stubbornly, beautifully. Michaelmas for Ellen isn't a holiday. It's a pause between battles, a moment to breathe, to count, to grieve, to gather what little joy the earth gave her this year and store it like treasure in the corners of her soul, because she knows what the gentry never will. A woman who has nothing still owns her courage. A crooked house is still a home, and cracked hands can hold more love than any chalice. Alice is 15. She's wearing a shawl too big for her shoulders, borrowed from her mother, and smelling faintly of wood smoke and thyme. Her boots pinch at the heel. She tried stuffing them with wool, but it didn't help much. She walks with her chin a little higher than yesterday, as if courage might begin in the throat and work its way down. She's too young to be wise and too old to be anyone's shadow. Today is the hiring fair, and everything feels possible and terrifying. The village has been buzzing for days. Chickens chased, geese traded, skirts let out, hems stitched in a rush. The blacksmith's wife said there would be 3 noble households sending stewards this year, more than usual. The baker's cousin swore she heard a bell ringer from the city might be coming, looking for a kitchen girl who could read. Alice can't read, not yet, but she can dream, and that counts for something. The fairground is a trampled meadow on the edge of the woods. By mid-morning it smells of damp hay, horse sweat, and roasted apples. The church bells have barely stopped ringing when the carts start arriving, some piled with wool, others with daughters. Banners flap in the breeze, patched with old guild colors and fading crests of long-forgotten families. Hiring fair is half market, half gamble, and all spectacle. Stewards stand behind makeshift tables with wax seals and ink pots, squinting at girls like they're checking apples for bruises. Mothers press children forward, offering nervous smiles and over-practiced curtsies. Fathers hang back, arms crossed, watching everything and saying nothing. Alice watches the older girls, with their neat braids and borrowed aprons, while they bargain in soft, serious voices. They know how to pitch themselves, how to say, "I can cook," in a way that sounds like loyalty, how to offer, "I rise before dawn," like it's a hymn. She tries to mimic their calm, but her hands won't stop fidgeting. The steward's wife frowns at her boots. Alice looks away. She doesn't know what she wants, not really, just more. A life that stretches, a room with a window, a name someone remembers. A story she might tell someone someday, maybe by a fire, Maybe while peeling turnips, maybe while watching stars from a place that doesn't feel borrowed. In her pocket she's folded a blackberry leaf, the last one she picked before Michaelmas Eve. Her grandmother said the devil spits on blackberries after this day, but a leaf picked before can still hold a bit of summer luck. She clutches it like it's a charm. She doesn't believe in magic, except when she does. The Murmurs arrive just after noon, heralded by a boy with a pipe and a girl clanging 2 spoons together like cymbals. Their costumes are tatty, patched with scraps of pride. One of them, tall, with a crooked grin, is dressed as St. Michael, his wings made of painted linen, feathers from a goose glued in clumps. His sword is wooden, but he carries it like it could part the clouds. And he sees her watching and winks. Alice blushes, and then smiles. The crowd gathers to watch the Murmurs play out the old story. St. Michael defeating the dragon, casting it down with holy fire. The dragon is played by a boy in a bucket helmet and a tunic made of sackcloth. The audience cheers when he falls, mostly because they know the ending. Alice wonders if everyone ever tells the dragon side of things. And for a moment, just a moment, she believes this might be the start of something. She might end up scrubbing pewter in the parlor house, or mending linens in a drafty castle, or maybe, just maybe, in a town where the streets are paved and someone teaches her to read. She doesn't know yet where she'll be sent. Not far from home, or maybe farther than she dares imagine. But as the fair spins on around her and the sky tilts toward afternoon, she clutches the blackberry leaf, watches the Murmur's wings shimmer in the sun, and tells herself, maybe the world doesn't need to be perfect, just possible. Just one day, already past, but the hush it leaves behind hangs heavy. The wood smoke on wool, it lingers in the open ledger on a noblewoman's desk, ink still wet from debts unpaid. The smear of blackberry juice on a child's hand, caught between mischief and myth. In the wax pooling around a candle stub, burning too long after Mass because someone just needed a little more light. But more than that, it lingers in the women, not in the ballads sung by minstrels or the records kept by kings, but in their footsteps, their stitches, their choices, in what they bore, in what they built, in the way they wove the world back together. Every time it unraveled, quietly, constantly, without waiting to be thanked. So tonight, raise your cup to queens with crowns too heavy, to shopkeepers with ledgers full of worry, to girls in second-hand shawls carrying firstborn dreams, to the ones history forgot but time remembers in whispers, to Agnes balancing books and bread, to Maud still mourning but still rising, to Ellen who feeds her children with salt and stories, to Alice, who dares to dream beyond the edge of the fairground, and to Elizabeth, who wears peace like borrowed velvet, trying not to flinch, because Michaelmas is more than a feast. It's a thread in the year's tapestry, a seam stitched by women's hands, and it's still holding. If your heart's still somewhere in 1487, wandering the mist with Alice, Ellen, and Elizabeth, you know where to find us. Write us at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com, or come whisper your favorite tale to us at Long Live the Queen Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And if you're craving more stories, more secrets, more candlelit corners, we're waiting on Patreon with the good stuff. You know the kind. Until then, may your geese be golden, your berries sweet, and your steps guided by something just out of sight.